Life has its white notes, and life has its black notes. Bridget Jones, Mad About the Boys, a Peacock original from Universal Pictures, Studio Canal, and Miramax. You know, I don't think enough studios were involved in this particular production. The next time they want to do a film based on a popular IP like this, get those numbers up, people! So this continues the saga of Bridget Jones, played by Renee Zellweger, who is now in her early 50s. She has 2 children, and, well, let's just say she has to enter the dating pool after a particular situation has left her to raise her children by herself. All by herself. Don't want to be all by herself. Hence why she's entering the dating pool once again. She has her circle of friends. Hugh Grant has returned as Daniel Cleaver. And so on into infinity, featuring the usual shenanigans and reflecting upon one's life and what one has done right, what one has done wrong, what one still has to learn. And look, for those that have paid attention and followed along with the Bridget Jones saga, not just the books done by Helen Fielding, but the movies. It started all the way back in 2001. I was 20 years old, and I ended up, having to clean up after that movie quite a bit, to the point that Shelby Lynn's The Killing Kind played in my goddamn head for months. Months on end. I would like to have had Shelby Lynn at one point, but nevertheless, not just had her on my mind. Moving on from that. Then we had The Edge of Reason in 2004 that was a sequel that also looked older than the 2001 production, I think due to either camera equipment issues or just the fact they didn't give a fuck. Those 2 movies were pretty successful, but then it went on ice because they thought Renee Zellweger could have a big old acting career. That didn't exactly work all that well. She's not bad, but that being said, she's always been kind of here instead of A-list. Nevertheless, they did do Bridget Jones, Bridget Jones's Baby, that is, in 2016, and that seemed like a nice wrap-up. And then they announced that this was going to happen. I kept waiting for, theater show times to drop. And then I learned last week that it's a Peacock original. I'm like, okay, good. I don't have to leave my fucking house and deal with couples at a goddamn movie like this. So that being said, I did recently rewatch and do video reviews and letterbox reviews. By the way, if you want to check out my letterbox, it's Reborn43. I also put that in the description. I love the first one. The first one really holds up well. The sequel is not all that great. In fact, I would argue it pretty much sucks. Now, I will say Bridget Jones's Baby, while not perfect, does at least kind of balance enough of the story and finds enough of a sweet spot with the legacy characters and that kind of stuff. This is better. This is not as good as the first, but it's about as good as you're going to get after a near quarter century since the first movie. And also the fact these actors aren't getting any younger, and this movie kind of plays on that. And honestly, I don't think the comedy works nearly as well as the reflecting, on one's mortality and stuff like that. I think that stuff works a whole lot more than the comedy. The comedy is okay. This was directed by Michael Morris, who's done To Leslie and various television programs, and based on a novel by Helen Fielding, and Dan Mazer, who did Bridget Jones 3 and Borat, and also Abby Morgan, who did The Invisible Woman and television. So yes, Renee Zellweger, Hugh Grant, Colin Firth, Emma Thompson, being as humorous as ever, even though it's only a brief cameo. Isla Fisher is in this briefly. Unfortunately, very briefly, because I certainly like seeing her and stuff. But we do have Jim Broadbent, easy for me to say, Gemma Jones, and Sarah Solmani returning as Miranda. I would still go to war for that woman, but that's being said, we get a setup as to how Bridget got in this particular situation. For those that have not seen it, I'm going to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I did like how one of the opening lines was, fuck, so late. And then, we'd see her reflecting and, raising the kids and that kind of stuff and doing it on her own, which if you can't figure out what happened, then really don't know what to tell you. But she goes to a gathering with friends to reflect on the loss of somebody and is hanging out with her friends. And that's actually kind of nice that they decided to get back to kind of basics, so to speak, stuff that worked in the first one while bringing it forward. And yeah, she's talking about how it is tough raising kids. And, the dad even said at one point upon reflecting while he's in the hospital, Promise Me That You'll Live, Bridget. Jim Broadbent was very good in this. And Modern Love, But I Try. But I try, da da da, but I try. That song, I can't remember the lyrics of right now, is playing over the opening credits that happened almost 19 minutes into this movie. That is something that productions need to stop now, is waiting so long to do the opening credits. Like, if you want to do them 8 to 9 minutes in, that's one thing. But almost 20 minutes into the goddamn movie, why even bother? I think it was like Influencer did like 30 minutes in. There was that Indian action movie or action movie from India that I think did called Kill, that I think did them like 45 minutes in, and I don't understand. So basically from there, we get introduced to some new characters, see the legacy characters, and so on, stuff like that. Now, again, I will say that this movie does honor the, good parts of the first one, and even the third one. I mean, honestly, The Edge of Reason just felt more like a rehashing of the first one, not even a good rehashing. But it is nice that we get things hopefully wrapped up. I enjoyed this and even got a little bit, not necessarily teary-eyed, but like, oh shit, okay, they actually hit on some good emotional beats there. And Chitwell, EO4, God, I can't never say. The guy from 12 Years a Slave. Chitwell. I'm just going to say that because it's easier. I always screw up his last name. He's very good. He plays one of the love interests of Bridget. And there's also Leo Woodwall that plays another guy. So it's kind of like torn between one of the son's teachers and also a young man. Is it a thing where she's cougering? What is actually going on? The thing about this movie is it balances enough stuff to get it mostly right. Now, I'm not going to say it's perfect. I do feel it's a little bit long. By the time the end credits roll and, finish up, it's 2 hours and 4 minutes, which feels a little bit long. I think they could have probably cut 10 minutes of this. I think there are a few scenes that we could have cut out. I think there are things that work. And I think this is probably the most... the most tolerable, or at least, I guess good as Renee Zellweger's been in a while. And it balances things nicely to a degree. Not perfect, but certainly works. It is on Peacock if you want to check it out. But this needs to be the last one, because not only are these characters not getting any younger, and I'm not saying put them out to pasture, there isn't anywhere else to go. I don't know how many more Bridget Jones books there were, but if there are, unless you're going to do these films in the next few years, leave it by the wayside. And really, I don't know what else you do. It seems like they wrapped up the story nice and neat, especially after the events of the third one and how that closed. This finishes it up about as well as it can. Sure, it seems safe. Sure, it may be, is restricting Bridget, so to speak, as far as her snark. She's also older, and we all age, and we all grow up, and we may maintain and retain some of those things, but eventually we do have to grow up and get more mature, unless you're me, and then you never will. That means that's on Peacock. If you want to check it out, 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So Darcy's dead. Those are his kids. The kids, by the way, the actors are fine, but kids are super annoying. I hate children. Don't want children hurt, just can't stand them. She gets a nanny named Chloe. I thought the actress who played Chloe is pretty nice. So, yeah, memories is a big, part of this. She sees Mark and imagines him with that opening line, life has its white notes and life has its black notes. Jim Broadbent as the dad dies. And she decides to get back into the dating pool. Daniel helps out as a bit of an uncle, shall we say. And Hugh Grant has his own, issues and stuff like that. He's still a playboy, but he's still got stuff going on. It has elements that work and has elements that, they don't fall with a resounding thud. They just kind of, So, I, again, say I would go to war for Miranda. I don't know why. But she falls for both Mr. Wallaker, Chitwell, and Rockstar, who, Leo Mr. Leo, as I'm going to call him. And Nico Parker plays Chloe, the nanny, who I see big things for her. I thought she actually did a really good job here just in the brief time that she had on camera. And at first she hooks up a Roxby or Rockster, and things are going well, and everything's good, everything's fine. She does have a bit of it's obvious that she's going to end up, she's going to end up with Chitwell, and she does. But we have a montage of her hanging out with Rockstar. At one point, she gets a bunch of condoms and stuff like that. And Wallaker sees her, and it's funny. His name is Scott, by the way. And Chloe's a good nanny, is very organized and stuff like that. And her friends, Bridget's friends are all encouraging her, enjoy your life and enjoy your stuff. Emma Thompson does have some funny lines, especially at one point when Bridget tries to inject her lips with stuff or, use a compound that swells her lips up like that. And because she's a gynecologist, she said, these lips are on the wrong side for what I usually examine. Because Emma Thompson's just fucking hilarious. Mad About the Boy plays at this party. Rockstar ends up saving the dog. Praise You plays. I swear this is the fourth movie I've seen in the last year that has played Praise You. I'm trying to remember what one was most recent. And then during a drinking binge, he basically says he wishes he had a time machine. And then he kind of ends up ghosting her. Not to be mean, but he just wasn't sure what he wanted. Because he's in his late 20s. She goes back to square one, so to speak, but not as depressed because she's been through a lot and she's also got to raise her kids. And again, the Emma Thompson stuff with the lift, so it's pretty funny. Daniel's in the hospital. He had heart issues. He was kind of reflecting on stuff. He has a son, but he hasn't seen him since he's 2. He's raised by the mother and also by an Italian rich man. And she ends up basically going out with her kids, releasing balloons on their dad's birthday. Then there's this camping trip thing where she ends up not necessarily hooking up with Scott right there, but it becomes obvious that's where we're going with this. She, in between this, ends up not necessarily telling off Rockstar, but basically telling him, hey, you are good. You helped me through a lot. And you need to go out there and get what you want. Even if you think you want this, you need to go make someone else happy. And that's fair. It is hard, age difference wise, especially to make things work. Believe me, I know. But Billy, Don't Be a Hero, is one of the kids. Mabel's the other kid. And he's talking to his teacher, Scott, and says, about Dad, what if I forget about him? You don't have to. Energy is, only transferred. He lives in you and Mabel and that kind of stuff. And that was nice. That was nice. And Chibwell's a very good actor, so I thought he did a good job with this character here. And then we get a reflection back to the past with Anything, sung by Billy at a talent show. And that was nice. And she basically pours her heart out to goddamn Scott right there, saying, you did so much and thank you. I realize we can, we will be okay. The kids will be okay. And earlier, there was this part where she was climbing a tree to get her kids, and Rockstar was there, and Scott was there, and then the discussion of Newton's law that she got wrong with Einstein, and they basically end up talking it out at this one final thing. There's like this Christmas party, this Christmas pageant. They're at this party drinking. Scott shows up. And then they're talking in the snow, reflecting back on when she met, when she poured her heart out to Mark, and Mark and, her got together. And then they got together, and then New Year's Eve. Everything's going good. It's only been a few days. Things seem to be going well. Everybody's gathered. The friends gathered and said, we've had some fucking fun times, haven't we? See, that's... We've had some fucking fun, though, haven't we? And that's good. That's something good, because friends reflect on that, because eventually, if you can have a group of friends be around there for you, it's always a good thing. And she's with Scott. It's all wrapped up. we get a montage of pictures at the end going through the previous movies. And it's nice. It's nice to wrap it up in a neat little bow, but this is where they need to leave it. Because, see, the thing is, this could have been released in theaters and probably done pretty well, but the diminishing returns, especially of the third movie, and the fact that this one, this is like released at the point where streaming services are gobbling up content and willing to pay for anything and just trying to get subscribers and views and stuff like that. It makes sense why this is put on streaming. And despite its issues, despite, some stuff that I have, the wrinkles and whatnot and what have you, I'll give it a B+. It's not, again, as good as the first film. They got an A+. But it is better than the next two entries. It's definitely better than Edge of Reason. And it's better than Bridget Jones's Baby because this has a nice balance to it. And that being said, B+. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.